And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Thursday morning. We got some rain for the first time in a very long time. You know what that means. Accidents all over the place, of course. Luckily, I left a little bit early today because there were two. Not one, but two jackknife tractor trailers on the way in, which reminds me of that Aaron Rodgers interview that we had. That first one there at Florham Park on a rainy day when we were inside and he hated our guts. He dealt with two jackknife tractor trailers on the way in. So there was one on the westbound LIE, and then there was a full shutdown of the BQE on the Kosciuszko with another jackknife tractor trailer. So be safe out there. And just because it hasn't rained in a long time doesn't mean that you need to forget how to drive in the rain. So it's November, 21st. Boomer and Gio Live is tomorrow, November 22nd. And we went through this unbelievably great stretch. We did. It was a phenomenal stretch with the Yankees and the Mets and getting ready for football. And if you would have told me when we were heading into the playoffs with those two teams, hey, project November 21st for the show, I'd say, probably we're going to have a Jet team that's right there. Going to be heading into the playoffs. Got a Giant team that's going to be good enough, maybe could sneak into a wild card, and we're going to keep this New York sports thing running. Well, you fast forward to real November 21st, and the stories of the day are Drew Lock spoke to the media, and Darius Paduke's going to jail. That's what we got. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, we also got a huge Nick win last night. First game on this West Coast road trip. 138 points, throwing bombs up all over the place, and Jalen Brunson having his best game of the year. I'm telling you, this thing is starting to come together pretty nicely. If you really want to talk sports. Now, if you want to get into the psychology of sport, we could talk about the stuff that Drew Lock's dealing with and how tenuous the locker room is, I'm sure, intense over there for the New York Giants. But, that's part of what this business is, especially when your team is losing and it continues to lose and there's a losing culture and they can't overcome it. And now you got to deal with, interactions between human beings. And there are going to be feelings. And those, I try to tell you guys that they're not robots.
Feelings.
And quite frankly, if I were Drew Lock, I'd be pissed off too. I mean, what did I come here for?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're passing me over. Now I think the Giants actually are doing the right thing for their fans. There's a pecking order. There's an understanding when you sign your contracts. But once the team starts losing, all of those agreements go completely out the window. All of those handshakes, all those great moments that you had in training camp and all the belief that the team had in you means nothing when the team starts going south. And the team has gone south for the last 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and now all of a sudden they have to do something for their fan base. And I was talking to two of my really hardcore Giant fans that do have season tickets. And I always kind of rely on them to get the temperature of the fan. I'm a big temperature guy.
Like with a Chef IQ sense, you insert the probe into your friends, and then you check your phone?
I insert that probe right into them, and I say, okay, let me see the heat level.
Right, and then you look on your app, and it's like, here we go.
And really, both of them basically yesterday said, now, I will say this.
I will say this.
They are.
Can I say this?
They come from Italian heritage.
Oh.
So they are very happy that Tommy DeVito's getting a chance. And that they feel as if the team is throwing them a bone to go to the game and to have something to look forward to, as opposed to going to the game and knowing that they're not going to score any points in the first half, and there are going to be balls thrown into the ground over the heads of the attendant receivers, and there are going to be sacks. So they are at least somewhat relieved. But then I asked one of them, I said, what happens if Tommy, goes 20 for 30, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the Giants win 24-17? You know what the next thing is going to be? Why didn't you do this earlier? That's the next argument coming if Tommy DeVito is able to deliver with an energetic performance, a good performance. But those two guys that are longtime Giant fans, they're my age. They've been around. They've seen everything. They know the team better than I know it. All I can tell you is that they are genuinely looking forward to the game on Sunday against the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, and which is great for a fan base that is dead, and it's the same thing last year. It was the only positive sports story that we had in New York football, but now if Daboll and Shane stay, and I think at this point that's probably the most likely situation, they're now in a spot where they are probably going to have to draft a quarterback because the options are not going to be great out there otherwise. So they had an opportunity with two guys last year. Now I didn't love the J.J. McCarthy pick for the Vikings, but apparently he's with this injury and watching Sam play, and he's sort of getting a full education this year. Maybe he'll come back and be good next year. But they didn't draft Michael Penix, they didn't draft J.J. McCarthy, and now they've got a spot where if they are here next year, they're going to have to draft a quarterback. Now, we'll see how the evaluations go. Guys come out of nowhere. There's combines, there's pro days, there's all that stuff. But if they win a few games, they're going to be in the same position as they were last year, where that top quarterback is probably not going to be within their reach.
The top quarterback's going to be Shedeur Sanders.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
That's the top quarterback. And the question is, who is going to have that number one overall pick? Does Jacksonville hold on to it and end up trading out of it because they gave Trevor Lawrence a huge contract already? Or do the Giants continue to lose, and do they go up the draft board, and do they end up with the number one pick? That's basically look, the Titans are going to want a quarterback, the Browns are going to want a quarterback, the Giants are going to want a quarterback, the Raiders are going to want a quarterback.
Right, but so this is the point,
the
is
Jets
that
are going to want a quarterback.
How Tommy DeVito plays, just like last year, is going to affect the future of this organization.
Yes. So all these teams, there's like 7 teams in the top 10 that all need quarterbacks.
Just like there were 3 ahead of the Giants last year. And they all took quarterbacks. And if Tommy DeVito didn't win some of those games last year, maybe they would have had one of those top 3 guys.
And you know it, and I know it, and you got to find the right guy that can handle all this. There's a lot to be handled here. Now, a little bit different for the Giants than it is the Jets. The Jets need more than that. I mean, they're gonna need real strong personalities to stand up there in front of their fan base and say we're starting over again. Yeah. And there are good players on the Jet roster. There's no question about it. Whether or not they can come together as a team and play better next year, that's a whole nother story. But for the Giants, I mean, it really is going to come down to where are they in the pecking order when it comes to the draft in 2025. And if they're going to be outside of that, there's going to be a couple of other quarterbacks that will ascend, if you will. They'll go up the
old
the
out
ladder.
of nowhere guys.
Right.
It always happens where
yes, of course.
Teams who are desperate for quarterbacks because their jobs are on the line or in their salary cap situation and they need to have a guy in a rookie deal to be able to have the best roster. And then you get these guys that are overrated and drafted way above where they should be drafted, and they end up being busts. So,
I mean, there's all sorts of stuff out there now, like Kirk Cousins has had a good year for the Falcons, probably not as good as they were hoping for or not as explosive. They shouldn't be where they're in first place in their division, but they've lost too many games, and they didn't compete out in Denver at all. And that's not why you give a guy $100 million. You want to go out there, you want to compete, you want to have a chance to win every single game. And there may be a little bit of the bloom off the rose, if you will, down there in Atlanta. And I'm sure they're watching Michael Penix in practice, much like, and I'm not saying he's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but that I really liked him coming out of Washington. I loved his accuracy. He reminded me like of Tua because he's left-handed. He plays that kind of way. He doesn't run around. He's a smart player. He's got a really strong arm. He's a really accurate player. I'm sure that they're watching him in practice, much like Kansas City used to watch Patrick Mahomes that first year he was there. And maybe Michael Penix will get a chance to play some football here late in the season if, in fact, the Falcons are playing in some games that don't mean anything. And just like the Chiefs played Patrick Mahomes the last game of his rookie year, and he lit up Denver. Like, you knew it was coming. So I think that may be happening down in Atlanta as we speak. And if that's the case, guess who's going to be available?
Kirk Cousins.
That's right, and he's going to be one of your stopgap guys because everybody around here, at least at this station, when I turn on the station, I listen to it.
Stopgap guy.
I hear so much stopgap talking; it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay. So stopgap then for who? So then,
well, that's the point.
So you're going to bring in Kirk Cousins who had a history of putting up big numbers and a history of winning games. You're going to bring him in just to be in the draft the next year to try to get a top quarterback.
I mean, they want to win.
You're going to probably be picking like 15th again.
Look, whoever the coach is,
it's a nightmare.
They want a quarterback that they can count on, that they can trust. Now, look, for Tommy DeVito, here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity to show the Giants that you can either be the next Brock Purdy or you can be at least a serviceable quarterback that they can throw out there, and you will give them an effort and win ball games. And he could be your stopgap.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be your starter going forward. He could be your stopgap going forward. I don't think, I think with the way that Drew Lock is reacting to all this, which I appreciate 100%. I get his take on things.
Yeah.
He's not going to be here.
Of course not. Yeah.
They're basically screwing him over is what they're doing. And maybe he didn't realize what he was getting himself into. Maybe he thought it was going to be different and that he would actually have a chance, because he knew that in Seattle he was not going to have a chance to unseat Geno Smith. Like, he had a chance to come here with a lame duck quarterback that wasn't playing well, and there were a lot of question marks, and he had an injury history. Maybe he thought he would get into games and be able to start games maybe in week 3, 4, or 5, not here in week 11.
Yeah, I think the best way to explain this whole thing is they brought in Drew Lock with the hopes that this team would be competitive, and knowing that Daniel Jones has an injury history, that if he went down, they had a guy like Drew Lock, like Geno Smith went down last year, and Drew Lock came in and played really well for a short amount of time, so they'd have a professional quarterback to be in there if Daniel Jones was hurt to make sure they didn't fall out of the playoff race. The way it turned out, the team is dead. They're 2-8. There's nothing going on. And the only exciting thing that the Giants have had in a very long time was Tommy DeVito last year. Mm-hmm. And they said, hey, we're terrible at home. We can't win a game. Our fan base hates us. Let's throw him Tommy DeVito again and see if we can have a little bit of fun before the season is over.
I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. And maybe it wasn't said in those words, but I'm sure that internally that's probably what's going on. Like I said, maybe if this game were away this week, maybe it would have been Drew Lock. I don't know. And I know that there are all sorts of incentives out there. Spot Track put it out there. This is why he's not playing. I'll tell you one thing. As a former player who got screwed over when it came to incentives, there is nothing worse than getting screwed over, feel like you cannot trust that front office, you cannot trust that ownership, you cannot trust the coach.
So what do you think Daniel Jones is thinking at this point where he is now the fourth quarterback? But now it's clear to me that even though they threw him out there for 10 games in NFL football with him getting his face kicked in, that now they don't want him seeing the field because of the potentially injury guarantee at this point, because they know he's not the future. They know that he's done. They know his future here is nothing. So what they're going to do is make sure that he can't even get anywhere near the field.
Yeah, now
he's the fourth quarterback.
And again, remember, we're talking about human beings here. We're talking about certain psychological feelings that everybody has, and there's a distrust. You come together as a team. You win, it's easy to stay together as a team. You lose, now all of a sudden things are going to start happening where players are going to be aware of what's happening and what the team is doing. So they now know that their captain, their starting quarterback, their $41 million man is now being relegated to being the fourth quarterback and basically being an afterthought. And it's going to be really tough for Daniel to handle this. It's going to be a really tough thing for him to handle and deal with. And I know because I've been there.
He's going to dress for the games.
I don't know. He may not. I don't know what's worse. If you make him dress for the games, that means he's on the sideline and he's got to hear it. If he doesn't dress for the games, assuming that we know Daniel, I believe that he will end up going to the games and maybe he'll be standing on the sideline, but just not in uniform. Maybe he'll sit up in the owner's box. I'm not really sure. I'm telling you, it is such a weird dynamic. And it just makes everything that much more intense.
Yeah, so when Zach Wilson got sent down to the third quarterback in his rookie season, he was there and you were like, okay, he's going to learn. We still have hopes in him. We still believe in him. He had the headset on. He had the clipboard. He was talking to people, and you were like, he's learning. This is a totally different situation. The Giants are done with Daniel Jones. He's not going to play another game with the Giants. Like, it's going to be so weird if they, you're watching this game and up in the owner's box is
I don't know if he'll be up there or not. I'm not sure.
But even if he's on the field, and not dressed, it's just, this is a weird situation.
I mean, the real question is, will he go to the game? I think he will. I mean, if they don't dress him, I think they will. But I do definitely get the feeling that, it's over for him here, and he knows it. They know it. Everybody around the organization knows it. And the players also know that Drew Lock is not getting an opportunity to go after the incentives he signed for. They know that too, which is not a great locker room to be in the middle of. And I told you, in Arizona, I could have gotten a $400,000 signing a bonus had I started one more game. And they told me I wasn't going to start the game that I threw against the team 500 yards against.
Yeah.
And I walked out on them. I don't remember that. I walked out for 2 days.
You told me.
I was up in the mountains in Arizona playing golf for 2 days on Wednesday and I literally walked out on them. Now, the Arizona Cardinals at that time also had a history of screwing over players and their incentives in their contract.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make a statement, and I said, I'm not going to stand for this. I said, if you pay me the minimal amount of money that you owe me, then I would say I wouldn't have a problem with what you're doing, and I would stand here and I would take it. But I felt really convinced that it was all about the money, and I was not going to have it. I was not going to stand for it, and I'm sure that there's some of that in Drew Lock, but things have changed. Like I wasn't making $5 million.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Things have really changed. I was making $750,000 at the time.
Yeah.
So the extra $400,000 would have been, an added bonus on that contract that I was expecting to get, but then all of a sudden, with 2 weeks left in the season, I got it pulled out from under me.
Right, and you certainly weren't making $40 million.
And by the way, the late Jim Fossil, love him to death. He was a great coach for me. He was our offensive coordinator out there. He didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to talk to me about it. Didn't want to get involved. He just, I'm just coaching here. I'm just, I don't make these decisions. And then, and then he would tell me on the side, I want you to be the starting quarterback. But then at the end of the day, I wasn't.
So this is really interesting. So the injury guarantee thing doesn't just count for if he gets hurt in a game. So if Daniel Jones got hurt during a practice, in the weight room, at the team facility, they could still be on the hook for the injury guarantee. So this was a similar situation with Derek Carr back in 2022 with the Raiders. And they sent him home. Do you remember that?
Yes, exactly. They just said go home.
Sent him home.
Basically, I'm trying to think if they didn't cut him.
No.
And was Josh McDaniels the coach or was John?
That was Josh McDaniels. Well, it was 2022. So, it was Josh McDaniels because he got fired, McDaniels, in the midseason 2023 when Antonio Pierce took over. Right?
Yeah. So it's the same. You feel like it's the same situation. I don't know enough about it as to whether or not
I'm reading it at NJ.com where they reference that.
Okay.
And it said, so unlike Derek Carr in 2022, Jones has not been sent home as a protective measure and will remain with the team to wrap up the season. Wouldn't that be amazing if he tripped over a weight or something in the weight room and then separated his shoulder and the injury guarantee kicked in? Send him home! But
still, he would have to pass an off-season physical before the season started. So the likelihood of that happening
is slim, but still.
Right, so they basically are relegating him to non-player status. So I saw yesterday they had him standing behind Tim Boyle.
Well, yeah, he's the fourth quarterback.
Which is, it's about as degrading as it gets and demeaning as it gets for a player, especially a starting quarterback. Especially somebody that they all supposedly believe in.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that BT ever said was that Timmy Boyle, he can spin it. That's what he said about Tim Boyle back in the day when he was on the Jets roster. He was like, hey, don't sleep on Timmy Boyle. He can spin it. Yeah. He spun it to a 0-2 record last year and then got caught because his agent leaked the story to The Athletic. Welcome back, Tim.
And did he go down to Miami there for a while?
I don't know where the hell he went.
Didn't he play in Miami this year, Eddie?
He might have. Who knows?
When Tua got hurt?
Did he play? He actually did get into it. You know what?
He was on the roster.
No, he got into the game because Tua got hurt, and then that other kid got hurt, and I think he went in.
Skylar Thompson?
Yeah, Skylar Thompson, yeah.
Yeah, Boyle did get into a game there.
Yeah.
Timmy Boyle.
It's crazy that he's here now.
Do you think he can spin it, too?
Yeah, I'm sure he can.
Okay.
He wouldn't be able to be on a roster if he couldn't. You got to be able to spin the ball if you're going to play.
I was just making sure. I don't know. I just figured that you would know. As
I didn't do a download on Timmy, but I would just say he's living his life, making some money, bouncing around the NFL. Good for him.
All right, but we're in Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.